You can't stop somebody from eating. Just like I wouldn't allow anybody to stop me from eating when I'm hungry on the street. Likewise, the baby, that's the baby's food, and we cannot stop, the baby from eating when he or she demands it. But, like everybody's, I don't know, we're just a funny kind of community. People can go out in bikinis, and yet an innocent baby cannot eat when it wants to eat.
In other places in the world, you don't bat an eye.
No.
Breasts are as sexy as your elbow.
That's right.
And yet we live here. And embarrassment in the research is shown to be a barrier for women of all socioeconomic groups, from the poorest to the most wealthy, up until close to a year.
Let them see it, let it be out there, and let people get used to it if they're comfortable with it. That was sort of what you're doing for the child is extremely natural.
Even the question of, do you use a cover or not? Because, in our experience, or in your experience, it's easier without a cover, it's more comfortable, you can respond to the baby better.
Well, so in all fairness, the first few times that she was breastfeeding in public, it was a bit, I was always supportive, but it was a little bit, it was like, oh, look, there's my wife's boob out in public saying hello. I used to see it in very, and I was used to seeing it in a very different context, and that's like, oh, there it is.
Public breastfeeding. I breastfed anywhere I wanted, everywhere I wanted. Nobody said anything to me ever. And one time I was nursing actually in the pool at the Y in Cambridge, and the lifeguard came over, and I'm expecting him to say something to me, and he just put his arm on me and said, "That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And he was about 20 maybe. Like, it was just wonderful. That happened that was with Georgia after Chloe was in school.
I also really encourage people to be out in public. Like, it's actually been really lovely how much support you do get. And if there are grumpy people, you just ignore them.
Celine has been asked not to do it in certain places.
Right.
And that's always, to me, like a really bad thing to say to someone.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, we've seen that, but other than that, my experience has just been that most places are okay with it, and yeah.
Well, I know that you have a sticker on your door into the cafe, and that actually makes a big difference to a lot of moms. And I think that maybe somebody who isn't breastfeeding might not necessarily notice it, but when you're in that part of your life, and I'm sure you know from being the dad, is that, you sometimes navigate where you're going to go based on what your kids' needs are, right?
Right, yeah.
And so I know that mothers in our region really appreciate seeing that sign, and so, it's really important to me to say to something like Princess Cafe, we really honor that you are taking that step extra to make women feel comfortable, because breastfeeding is normal, but a lot of times that's not the message that we get.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Hopefully we won't need to have that sign on the door in a few years,
That's
because
very true.
The ideal would be for people to just feel comfortable and do it anywhere, anytime, right?
There are some people who, they only want to use a cover, but they still have breastfeeding questions, and some, they're just like, here it all is, and that's okay. Yeah. There's different cultures, there's so many differences, but we all have this one goal. We all want to breastfeed our babies.